The first time I heard that little boy call another woman Mom, something inside me went still, the kind of stillness that comes right before a storm. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I didn't even breathe. I just stood there in the middle of that grocery store aisle, holding a box of cereal I suddenly couldn't feel in my hands, watching a child with my sister's eyes wrap his small arms around a woman I had never seen before. And in that moment, I felt my entire childhood shift beneath my feet. Because my sister, my own flesh and blood, had spent years swearing she couldn't have children. Not biologically, not medically, not in this lifetime, as she always phrased it with that tight little smile. But there he was. A boy who looked like no one except her. Same dimple on the left cheek. Same auburn hair that never quite laid flat. Same wayward eyebrow she used to joke made her look permanently suspicious. I watched him tug on the sleeve of the woman beside him, the woman he called Mom, as she bent down to listen. And I felt a cold, hollow ache settle somewhere deep inside me. A secret had been living right under my nose. A big one. A life-changing one. And it was about to tear my whole family apart. Before all this, before secrets and lies began slipping into my home like drafts under a closed door, life was simple. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. Predictable in the gentle, familiar way families sometimes are. My sister Lena and I grew up in a small, sun-faded house on Maple Street. One of those places that always smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and warm bread because our mother baked whenever she got anxious, which was often. She'd hum old Motown songs while she cooked, tapping her foot like she had a rhythm only she could hear. Lena was always the adventurous one. The one who colored outside the lines, literally and figuratively. I was the opposite. Careful. Quiet. The child who lined up her pencils in perfect order before homework and folded her blankets sharp enough to impress a sergeant. Mom used to joke that Lena was her fire and I was her water. And maybe that's why we leaned on each other so much growing up. Her wildness softened my edges, and my steadiness kept her grounded. Even as adults, our lives breathed in and out of each other's faces. Sunday dinners at my house. Coffee runs before work. Late-night phone calls where she spilled her dating disasters, and I offered advice she almost never followed. She laughed big, loved big, and lived big. Until the day she came home from a doctor's appointment and told us, with red-rimmed eyes and a trembling smile, that she wouldn't ever bear children. Something inside her just didn't work right, she said. It's okay though, she insisted, trying to brush away our concern. Some people aren't meant to be moms in the usual way. Maybe I'll adopt one day. Or maybe I'll just be the cool aunt. I remember hugging her so tightly she squeaked. I remember promising her she'd still have the life she dreamed of. And I remember, more than anything, believing her. Because why wouldn't I? For nearly 5 years after that, she kept the same story. No pregnancies, no treatments, no options. And slowly, we got used to it. We adjusted our dreams. We talked about future nieces and nephews the same way we talked about lottery winnings, maybe one day, but let's not get our hopes up. Life moved on. I married, built a steady little life with a husband who loved routine as much as I did. I had a daughter, Mia, who filled every corner of my house with her bright voice and sticky fingerprints. And Lena, well, she drifted between jobs and boyfriends, still sparkling, still unpredictable, but always present. Always honest. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I realized the signs were there, just small. Quiet things I brushed off. She'd disappear for a weekend with vague excuses. She kept her phone close, closer than before. And sometimes, when I mentioned kids, she'd go strangely silent, staring at something far away, something I couldn't see. But then she'd shake herself, smile, and change the subject. I never pushed. Not because I didn't care, but because I respected what I thought were her boundaries. If only I knew then what I know now, that her silence wasn't pain. It was guilt. The first real clue came 3 months before the grocery store moment, a memory that now feels like someone whispering the truth in a locked room. It was a quiet Saturday morning. I had just poured 2 mugs of coffee, mine black, hers drowning in caramel creamer, and we sat on my back porch watching Mia run circles around the garden like she was training for the Olympics. Lena seemed off that morning. Fidgety. Distracted. She kept checking her phone every few minutes. Not like she was waiting for a call, more like she was terrified one might come. At one point, she flinched so sharply at a text alert that she spilled coffee onto the wooden deck. I teased her. "You expecting a message from the Queen?" She laughed, but it was hollow, a brittle sound that didn't match her eyes. "Just work stuff," she said quickly, slipping her phone into her bag, so fast it nearly tore the zipper. But something about the way she guarded it made my stomach tighten. A few minutes later, Mia ran up to her, breathless and grinning. "Auntie, look. I found a ladybug." Lena reached for her, smiling, but the moment Mia rested her small hand in hers, something strange flickered across my sister's face. Tenderness, longing, and a grief so heavy it felt like it had weight. I'd never seen her look at a child like that. I almost asked her about it, about the sudden softness in her eyes, but a gust of wind swept through the yard, making Mia shriek with delight as she chased falling leaves. The moment passed. Lena wrapped both hands around her coffee mug and changed the subject. Now, I know why she couldn't look me in the eye that morning. Now, I know exactly what kind of message she was waiting for. But back then, all I felt was a small ripple beneath calm water, a ripple I didn't yet understand. The second clue arrived on a Thursday. Thursdays were our errand days, the one day of the week Lena and I somehow managed to sync our schedules. I'd pick up groceries, she'd shop for houseplants she swore she didn't have room for, and we'd meet for lunch at the little cafe on Birch Avenue. But that Thursday, she canceled. Not unusual, not alarming, just a text at 8:14 a.m. "Hey sis, something came up. Rain check? Love you." I shrugged it off, sent back a sure, all good, and went about my morning. But an hour later, as I pulled into the grocery store parking lot, I spotted something strange, something that made my breath catch the way it does when you almost miss a step on the stairs. Lena's car, parked across the lot, windows cracked, driver's seat slightly reclined, and inside, her purse. If she was running errands elsewhere, why was her purse here? If she was home, why was her car here? And where was she? My first instinct was simple: call her. Ask if everything was fine. But before I could, someone opened the passenger door of her car. A woman. Mid-40s. Blonde hair tucked into a loose bun. Wearing scrubs. She slid into my sister's car with the kind of comfort that suggested familiarity. My stomach tightened. I don't know why I ducked behind my own car door. Maybe because something told me Lena didn't want me seeing this. The woman reached into the back seat and lifted out a small backpack, one with a little blue dinosaur stitched onto the front. A child's bag. She placed it in her lap, zipped it, then closed the door gently and sat there for a moment, rubbing her forehead like she was trying to calm herself. Then she sighed a long, exhausted sigh and turned the key. Lena's car drove away. I didn't follow her. I just stood there, keys in my hand, feeling the ground shift a little beneath my feet. Later that evening, when Lena called like nothing happened, chatting about dinner and a movie she wanted to watch, I didn't mention the woman. Didn't ask about the bag. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But something inside me whispered, this isn't normal. Something is wrong. You're not being told the whole truth. And I pushed those whispers away. Because that's what families do sometimes: ignore the signs, trust the words, believe the people we love. Even when we shouldn't. The full truth, the kind that shatters the air around you, arrived one rainy afternoon inside aisle 7 of Dawson's grocery. I hadn't planned to be there. Mia had a school project due the next day, something involving marshmallows and toothpicks, and I'd forgotten to buy the supplies. So there I was, hair frizzy from the drizzle, trying to pick between 2 brands of mini marshmallows. Then I heard a child's voice. Bright. Warm. Familiar in a way that made my heart stutter. Auntie, look at this. My head snapped up. Not because the child was talking to me, but because the voice, that pitch, that softness, was so achingly familiar. Like Lena when she was little. I stepped forward and peered around the corner of the aisle. And that was when everything stopped. A small boy, maybe 3 or 4, stood on tiptoe, pointing at a row of cereal boxes with cartoon animals on them. His hair was auburn, the same shade as my sister's. His left cheek had a tiny dimple that deepened when he smiled. His eyebrows, especially the right one, had that slight imperfect arch that ran in our family. He looked exactly like her. Like us. Before I could move, a woman walked up beside him, the same woman I'd seen in Lena's car weeks before, though now she wore jeans and a navy sweater instead of scrubs. She leaned down, brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, and said, "Okay, pick one, sweetheart. But just one. Remember what Mom said." Mom. That word hung in the air like thick fog. The boy turned, wrapped his arms around her leg, and said brightly, "Okay, Mommy. I didn't drop the cereal box. I think maybe I dropped myself." Because the truth, the awful, undeniable truth, crashed into me with the force of a tidal wave. My sister had a child. A son. A living, breathing, laughing little boy. And she had given him away. Not for adoption. Not to strangers. But to this woman. This woman who held him close like her own. Who kissed the top of his head like it was the most natural thing in the world. Who moved with the comfortable rhythm of a mother who'd been there since the beginning. My chest tightened so sharply I had to grip the edge of the shelf to steady myself. For a moment, I thought maybe I was mistaken. Maybe this was all a coincidence. Kids look alike sometimes. Maybe. Then the boy ran ahead, tripping slightly on his shoelace, and when she caught him, she laughed. A laugh I'd heard before. Not from this woman, but from Lena. Soft, melodic, bubbling around the edges. My legs felt weak. I backed away, trying to breathe, trying to understand, trying to hold on to something familiar so the world wouldn't tilt any further. But then, as if the universe wanted to carve the truth into my chest, the boy spotted me. He blinked. Slowly. Curiously. Like he recognized me, even though we'd never met. He tilted his head, just like my sister always did when she was trying to figure something out. And then he smiled. A full, bright, unmistakably Lena smile. I staggered. Not physically, but emotionally. Because that smile didn't feel like the smile of a stranger. It felt like home. Something inside me cracked open. And for the first time, I felt the full weight of what my sister had done. She didn't just hide a pregnancy. She didn't just hand over a child. She erased herself from his life and erased him from ours. My throat burned as the woman scooped him up and walked past me. And as they passed, she glanced at me briefly, polite, unaware. She didn't know my face. But her son kept looking over her shoulder at me, eyes wide, curious, drawn. Like he already knew me. Like he felt something he couldn't name. Something blood deep. When they disappeared around the corner, I finally breathed. A shaky, broken breath that hurt my ribs. I clutched my phone with trembling hands. And I called my sister. Because I needed the truth. All of it. Now. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Hey," Lena said, cheerful and unsuspecting. "What's up?" Her voice made something inside me twist. That voice had been my comfort through breakups, job losses, and motherhood. It had been my anchor. Now, it felt like a lie. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice shaking in a way I tried and failed to hide. At home," she replied. Too quickly. Too easily. I swallowed. "I'm at Dawson's," I said quietly. "Grocery shopping." She paused. A soft inhale. A shift in the air between us. "Oh," she said. "Did you find everything you needed?" "No," I whispered. And I wasn't talking about marshmallows. You wouldn't believe who I just saw. Silence. Not the normal kind, not the easy quiet between sisters. This one was thick, heavy, as if the phone line itself was holding its breath. "Lena," I said, "I saw a boy." A sharp exhale, like a thin crack in a glass window. "A little boy with your hair. Your dimples. Your smile." More silence, followed by a faint sound, like fabric brushing against something. "And he called some woman Mom." The same woman I saw in your car weeks ago. There it was, the truth landing between us like an earthquake. "I need to ask you something," I said. "And I need you to be honest." A trembling breath came through the phone. "Is he yours?" For a moment, nothing. Not a word. Not a breath. Just the sound of distant rain tapping against the grocery store roof. Then, finally, a tiny, broken whisper, yes. It felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. All the air left my lungs in a single, soundless exhale. You lied, I said. My voice cracked not from anger, but from grief. Lena, you lied to all of us. I know, she whispered. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Why? It came out sharper than I intended. Why would you hide something like this? Why would you tell me you couldn't have kids when I meant it, she interrupted. I didn't think I could. The doctors said, they said it wasn't impossible, but extremely unlikely. I had made peace with it. She took a shaky breath. And then I got pregnant. And everything inside me split. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. What happened? I demanded softly. Come home, she said in a trembling voice. Please. I can't do this over the phone. Just come home. I should have taken a moment to breathe, to calm myself, to think about how big this was, how irreversible. But I didn't. I just grabbed my purse and raced to the car, the world outside blurring into streaks of rain and confusion. Her house was quiet when I arrived. Too quiet. I let myself in using the key she'd given me years ago, a symbol of trust that now felt burned at the edges. I found her sitting on the couch, elbows on knees, her hands tangled in her hair like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. When she looked up at me, her eyes were already red. We stared at each other for a long moment, two sisters standing on opposite sides of a truth neither of us knew how to face. Sit, she whispered. I didn't. Tell me everything, I said instead. Her chest rose and fell slow, trembling. I got pregnant 4 years ago, she began. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't believe it myself. I thought it was a mistake. A fluke. She swallowed hard. And I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up. I crossed my arms, trying to steady myself. And the father? She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. He left the second I told him. Said it wasn't his problem. Said I would figure it out. A part of me softened at that. She had always been unlucky in love. But this wasn't just heartbreak. This was deception. A coiled, growing lie. So you carried a pregnancy, I said slowly, and told no one? She nodded. I tried to imagine her alone at doctor's appointments, alone through morning sickness, alone during late nights when fear creeps into your bones. My heart cracked a little. Then why didn't you keep him? I asked softly. Why didn't you let us be part of his life? Her voice broke. Because I didn't think I could be his mother. I blinked. What? She stood and began pacing, steps small, frantic, desperate. I wasn't ready, she said. I was broke. I was scared. I felt like a failure. And when he was born, he was so small, so precious, and she pressed her palm to her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. I froze. Every time he cried, I felt like I was drowning. Every time he looked at me, I felt like I was going to break. I didn't think I deserved him. Her words hung in the air, jagged and trembling. I wasn't strong like you, she whispered. I wasn't ready like you. I didn't have a husband or a home or anything to give him. My throat tightened. So you gave him to another woman? I didn't give him away, she said quickly. I placed him with someone who could give him stability. Her name is Marlene. She's a pediatric nurse. She helped me during the pregnancy when I didn't know where else to go. I felt dizzy. And you just let her raise him? Her shoulders crumpled. I visited, she whispered. Every month at first. Then every few weeks. I watched him grow. I held him when she let me. I was part of his life, but not as his mother. She looked at me with eyes full of regret. I never lied about being his mom. I just never told him. Or you. And you thought you'd hide him forever? I asked. No, she said softly. I thought one day, when I had my life together, I'd be ready. And then I'd bring him home. I stared at her, this sister I thought I knew. This woman who carried a child in her body and carried the guilt alone afterward. So why now? I whispered. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Her voice cracked open. Because you saw him, she said. And I know you. You won't let this go. She was right. I couldn't. Because lies this big have a way of unraveling everything they touch. Especially when the child at the center of it looked at me like he already knew me. I didn't yell. I didn't lash out. But something inside me, something anchored in years of trust, loosened and drifted away. Lena, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, you should have told us. You should have told me. She wiped her cheeks with trembling fingers. I know. But every time I tried, the word stuck. I wasn't ready for the look you're giving me right now. I took a slow breath and forced myself to sit. Her eyes flicked up, hopeful, afraid. What's his name? I asked quietly. She blinked. Ethan, she whispered. His name is Ethan. Ethan. A soft, warm name that felt like a flicker of light in the middle of all that darkness. A name I should have known. A name I should have sewn into birthday gifts and whispered during bedtime stories. A name that should have already lived in our family. My hand shook. Does he know you? I asked. Yes, she said quickly. Not as his mother. But he knows me as someone who visits. Someone who cares. Does he know we're his family? She shook her head, her face folding in on itself. No. He thinks Marlene is his mother. And I let him. A tight ache pulsed in my chest. So what now? I asked. She stared at the floor. I don't know, she whispered. I've been thinking, maybe it's time. Maybe I should tell him. Tell Marlene that I want more time with him. It wasn't anger that rose inside me. It was something heavier, disappointment wrapped in grief. You don't get to decide alone, I said. This isn't just your secret anymore. Her eyes filled again. I know. I'm sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Not for this. You need to talk to her, I said gently. Explain. Figure out a plan. Ethan deserves clarity. Lena nodded, though her hands trembled violently. I will. I promise. But something in her voice, a softness, a wavering, told me she didn't know how to take that step. And without it, this lie would continue. I couldn't let that happen. Not when a little boy with dimples like ours looked at me as if he recognized something in my face. Something that belonged to him. That night, after putting Mia to sleep and lying awake long after my husband's breathing fell into its slow rhythm, I made a decision. Not out of anger. Not out of superiority. But out of instinct, the same instinct that nudges you when a child is cold or scared or hungry. I needed to see him again. Not to take him. Not to confront anyone. Just to understand. Who he was. Who she was. Where he lived. What kind of home he had. And what role, if any, I might have in his future. So the next morning, I drove to the grocery store parking lot, the same one where I'd seen the woman get into Lena's car weeks before. My hope was thin, foolish even, but sometimes. Life hands you the right thread at the right moment. And that morning, it did. Because just as I was about to leave, I saw her car pull in. The tan sedan. The small dent near the back bumper. The faint rainbow sticker on the left window. She parked near the entrance. Got out. Then she opened the back door and lifted Ethan out of his car seat. He looked sleepy, his curls messy, his small hand rubbing his eyes. But when he turned toward the morning light, my breath caught. Because in that moment, the resemblance was undeniable. He was family. My family. I watched from across the parking lot, heart pounding, palms sweating against the steering wheel. They walked inside. And I waited, not to follow them aisle by aisle like some shadow, but to gather myself. After 10 minutes, I stepped out of the car. Inside the store, I could hear him before I saw him, his little giggle bouncing off shelves like sunlight. I followed the sound until I reached the bakery section. He was there, holding a muffin twice the size of his hand. His tiny face lit up with delight. Marlene crouched beside him, tying his shoelace again for what looked like the 5th time. A tenderness radiated from her. And in that moment, I understood. She didn't steal him. She didn't trick my sister. She loved him. Deeply. Wholly. Gently. And Ethan, he loved her back. My throat tightened. A small voice in my head whispered, "You have no right to disrupt this." But another voice, softer, sadder, whispered back, "But he's your blood. And he doesn't know you exist." My chest felt like it was folding in on itself. I didn't speak. Didn't approach. I watched them choose fruit. Watched him reach for a bright red apple. Watched her kiss the top of his head when he bumped into a cart. A normal morning for them. A seismic shift for me. I turned to leave. And that's when Ethan saw me. Just like before, his head tilted, curiosity sparkling in his eyes. He blinked slowly, then smiled. A sweet, innocent smile that tugged at something ancient in my heart. For a moment, barely a second, it felt like he recognized me. But children recognize warmth, not blood. Still, it was enough to knock the air from my lungs. Marlene followed his gaze and spotted me. Our eyes met. And in her expression, open, kind, polite, I saw no suspicion. Just a stranger looking at another stranger. I whispered a silent apology she couldn't hear. Then I walked away. That afternoon, I went back to Lena's house. She opened the door with swollen eyes. She hadn't slept. She didn't have to ask where I'd been. I need to know everything, I said softly. This time, she told me. Everything. How she hid her pregnancy by wearing oversized sweaters. How she worked night shifts to avoid being seen. How she went into labor alone. How she panicked when they placed Ethan on her chest. How Marlene, the nurse assigned to her, sat with her for hours, comforting her, not judging her. How Lena cried because she loved him too much, and because she believed she didn't deserve him. How she asked Marlene to care for him, just for a little while, and how that little while stretched into years. Each confession was another crack in my heart. But it wasn't hate that filled me. It was something more complicated. More painful, more human. Grief. For her. For Ethan. For all the lost time. When she finished, she looked at me with glassy eyes. I want to be in his life, she whispered. Really in it. Not from the sidelines anymore. I nodded slowly. Then you need to talk to her, I said. Today. She swallowed hard. Will you come with me? I hesitated. This wasn't my fight. This wasn't my child. This wasn't my decision. But Lena was my sister. And Ethan, something in him already felt like mine. So I nodded. Okay, I said softly. I'll come. The drive to Marlene's house felt longer than it was. Lena sat in the passenger seat, ringing. Her hands until her knuckles turned white. I stole glances at her, at the quiet tremor in her shoulders, at the fear tightening her jaw, at the love she was too ashamed to claim. Breathe, I whispered. She nodded, but her breaths came shallow, uneven. When we pulled up to the small brick house with white shutters and a wooden porch swing, she froze. I can't, she whispered. Yes, I said gently. You can. And I'm right here. We walked up the path. With every step, I felt Lena's anxiety ripple through the air like static. She lifted her hand to knock, faltered, then tried again. The door opened before she touched it. Marlene stood there, a dish towel in hand, her eyes widening the moment she saw Lena. Lena, she breathed, a mix of surprise, concern, and something like fear. Hi, Lena whispered, her voice small, too small for a woman carrying a truth this heavy. For a moment, none of us moved. Then Marlene stepped aside. Come in. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and laundry detergent, warm and lived in. Toys were tucked into baskets by the stairs. A small shoe rack sat near the door, lined with tiny sneakers. Ethan's world. Marlene motioned for us to sit, but Lena remained standing, as if roots had grown beneath her feet. I saw you at the store, Lena said softly. Both of you. Marlene nodded slowly, bracing herself. You looked happy, Lena added, tears filling her eyes. He looked safe. A faint softness crossed Marlene's face, but she stayed guarded. What's going on, Lena? She asked, her voice steady. I want to talk, Lena said. Really talk. About Ethan. Marlene's joy tightened almost imperceptibly. Okay, she said. I think it's time. We moved to the kitchen table. The silence was thick, the kind people don't breathe too loudly in. Lena wiped her face and began. I've been lying, she said. To my family. To myself. To you. Marlene didn't interrupt. I told them I couldn't have kids, Lena continued. I told myself that too, because it was easier than admitting I was scared. I hid my pregnancy. I hid Ethan. And I hid everything that came after. Her voice cracked. But I always meant to come back, she whispered. To be his mom when I was ready. Marlene's eyes softened, but her posture stayed firm. You loved him, Marlene said quietly. I saw that from the beginning. Yes, Lena breathed. I loved him so much it hurt. I loved him so much I thought he deserved better than me. Marlene set the towel down, folding it with slow, deliberate movements. I raised him, she said gently. I rocked him to sleep. I stayed up through fevers. I was there for his first steps, his first words, his first everything. I could feel Lena shrinking, guilt folding her into herself. But you're his mother, Marlene continued. Biologically, emotionally. Whether you were here or not, a part of him has always belonged to you. Lena broke then, collapsed into tears, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking as years of grief finally spilled out. Marlene reached across the table, hesitant, but not unkind, and placed a hand over Lena's trembling fingers. I've always known this day would come, she said softly. I didn't know when or how, but I knew. My throat burned. This wasn't anger. This wasn't conflict. This was two women, both mothers in their own way, grieving the same child from different sides of the same truth. Just then, small footsteps padded across the floor. Ethan appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. He wore dinosaur pajamas. His curls stuck out in every direction. And he looked so much like our family it hurt to breathe. Mommy? He asked sleepily. He meant Marlene. But the word hit Lena like a blade. She turned away, pressing a fist against her mouth to stifle the sob. Marlene rose and knelt beside him, smoothing his hair. It's okay, sweetheart, she whispered. Go on back to the living room. I'll be right there. But Ethan didn't leave. Instead, he looked at Lena. Really looked. His little brow furrowed, just like hers used to when she was confused or shy. Then he stepped closer, tentative but curious. And in a small voice, he asked, Are you the lady from the store? Lena's breath caught. Yes, she whispered. I am. He stared at her. His eyes, green with flecks of gold, searched her face like he was piecing together something he didn't have the words for yet. He tilted his head. Just like Lena. Just like our father. And then, almost shyly, he walked to her and placed his tiny hand on her knee. Lena broke all over again. She reached out, but stopped midair, afraid. Uncertain. Unworthy. Marlene stepped closer. It's okay, she said softly. You can. With trembling fingers, Lena touched her son's hand. And the room shifted, the kind of shift that comes when truth finally finds its way into the light. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, gentle, heartbreaking, and beautiful at the same time. Ethan climbed into Marlene's lap again, comforted by her warmth. But he didn't take his eyes off Lena. Not once. Over the next week, the truth made its rounds through the family. Mom cried. Dad didn't speak for 2 days. Aunts whispered. Cousins asked questions Lena didn't have answers to. But no one disowned her. No one turned away. They were shocked. Hurt. Confused. But they were still family. I thought you trusted us, Mom sobbed one evening, her head in her hands. We would have helped you, baby. I know, Lena whispered. I was ashamed. And I didn't want anyone to see me fall apart. Mom pulled her into her arms. You don't hide from family, she whispered. Not when you're breaking. I watched them from the doorway, 2 generations of women who carried pain in different ways. Lena wasn't forgiven immediately. But she wasn't abandoned either. Everyone wanted the same thing, for Ethan to be okay, for the truth to be handled gently, for the next chapter to be built with care, not chaos. And for Lena to step into motherhood, not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. One evening, Marlene called us over. I've been thinking, she said, about what happens now. Lena stiffened. You raised him, she whispered. I don't want to take him away. Marlene shook her head. And I don't want to keep him from the family he was born into. She looked at Lena with a softness I'll never forget. So why don't we figure this out, together? Lena blinked rapidly, stunned. Co-parenting. Shared time. A bridge between 2 homes rather than a tug-of-war over 1 child. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was possible. And it was the first real step toward healing. Co-parenting wasn't a neatly packaged solution. It wasn't a switch that flipped or a ribbon that tied everything together. It was a slow, careful stitching of two worlds that had existed apart for too long. At first, the arrangement was simple. Marlene remained the primary caregiver. Lena visited twice a week. Weekends were optional, depending on how comfortable Ethan felt. The early weeks were fragile. Ethan would run to Marlene when he felt overwhelmed. Lena would freeze, unsure if she should step forward or step back. Marlene would gently guide her, not intruding, not dominating, just steady. One afternoon, I sat with them in the park while Ethan chased bubbles. He ran with that carefree joy only small children have, his arms flapping like wings. Every time a bubble burst, he'd giggle from his belly, that same ringing sound Lena had when she was little. I noticed Lena watching him, hands clasped, eyes soft yet terrified. After a moment, she whispered to me, "He doesn't know what I am to him." "Not really." I nudged her gently. "He knows you're someone he feels drawn to. Kids know love, even before they know names." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't deserve him." I didn't sugarcoat. "No, you made mistakes. Big ones. But loving him isn't wrong. Trying now isn't wrong." She breathed shakily. "And if he never sees me," as she couldn't finish. "Didn't have to. If he never calls you mom?" I asked softly. "That's not a failure. That's a choice he'll make in his own time. What matters is that he knows you didn't abandon him." Her shoulders shook, grief and hope tangled together. "And that you're here now," I added. She nodded, wiped her cheeks, and that day, for the first time, she knelt beside Ethan and asked, "Can I blow bubbles with you?" He looked up at her, smiled, and placed a bubble wand in her hand. It was a small moment. But in the world of broken families and fragile reunions, it was monumental. Healing came in pieces. Sometimes in big, sweeping waves, other times in tiny, nearly imperceptible shifts. There was the morning Ethan fell and scraped his knee. He didn't run to Marlene. He ran to Lena, wrapped his arms around her leg, face pressed into her jeans, tears soaking the fabric. Lena froze, then slowly lowered herself, trembling as she held him. "You're okay," she whispered, voice cracking. "Mommy's got you." The words slipped out of her mouth like instinct. Then she panicked, eyes darting to Marlene. But Marlene didn't look threatened or replaced. She simply gave a soft nod, an offering. Permission. Later that night, Lena cried in my arms. "I didn't mean to say it," she sobbed. "It just came out. You meant it more than anyone else could," I whispered. Another moment came weeks later. Ethan was coloring at the kitchen table, tongue sticking out in concentration. Lena sat across from him, sketching little dinosaurs to make him laugh. He looked up suddenly, studying her face. "Why do you come to play with me?" he asked. Lena froze. I held my breath. She didn't lie. "Not this time." "Because you're very special to me," she said gently. "Why?" he insisted, brow furrowed in that same unmistakable family way. Lena's voice trembled. "Because I care about you. A lot." He considered this, then shrugged like the question was sufficiently answered. "Okay," he said simply and returned to his crayons. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a breakthrough. But it was acceptance. A beginning. The first time Ethan met our parents, his grandparents, was a carefully orchestrated day. We kept it gentle, small, unintimidating. Mom baked cookies, just like when you girls were little. Dad sat nervously in his chair, trying to hide the fact that his hands were shaking. When Ethan arrived, holding Marlene's hand, he stared at us like we were characters in a storybook. Mom knelt first. "Hi there, sweetheart," she said softly. "I'm Helen. I'm someone who's very happy to meet you." Ethan blinked, then gently touched her earrings, fascinated by their sparkle. Mom cried quietly. Dad turned away, pretending to inspect the window. Later that day, when Ethan sat in Dad's lap looking at old picture books, I saw something in my father's eyes I hadn't seen in decades. Hope. Tenderness. A kind of healing that only children can bring. That night, Mom hugged Lena for a long time. "You broke my heart," she whispered. "But thank you for giving us the chance to put it back together." 3 months in, Marlene called a meeting. her home, her table, her calm presence grounding all of us. I think Ethan deserves to know the truth, she said. Lena's breath hitched. So soon? Marlene nodded. He's perceptive. And he deserves honesty. But he also deserves gentleness. So I think the truth should come from both of us. The room fell completely silent. Together, Lena whispered. Yes, Marlene said. Together. And so, one quiet Sunday morning, they sat with Ethan between them on the couch, two women who loved one small boy in two different, equally fierce ways. I watched from the hallway, heart pounding. Lena spoke first. Sweetheart, she whispered, there's something important I want you to know. Ethan looked up, wide-eyed. You know how sometimes people have two people who love them very much, she asked. He nodded. Well, she continued, voice trembling, I'm one of those people. I've always loved you. From the very beginning. He frowned, confused. Marlene leaned in gently. Lena is special, she explained softly. She's special because she's the person who brought you into this world. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Not fear. Not shock. Just quiet curiosity. You mean, he whispered, like my first mommy? Lena crumpled into tears, not of sorrow, but of relief. Yes, she choked out. Yes, sweetheart. Your first mommy. Ethan thought for a long moment. Then, without hesitation, he climbed into her lap, wrapped his small arms around her neck, and whispered, It's okay. I have room for two. Lena collapsed into sobs, holding him as if he were new to her and yet home. Marlene watched with soft, glistening eyes. And for the first time since this entire storm began, I felt peace settle into the room. Heavy. Healing. True. Life didn't magically smooth out after that conversation. Healing isn't a straight line. It's more like a winding path through a forest, sunlight breaking through in some places, shadows lingering in others. But something fundamental shifted that day. For the first time, the truth was no longer a weight. It was a bridge. A bridge between a child, two mothers, an aunt who loved him without knowing him, and a family learning how to breathe again. Months passed. A routine formed, soft and natural. Tuesdays, Lena picked Ethan up from preschool and spent the afternoon with him. Thursdays, the three of them, Lena, Marlene, and Ethan, shared dinner together. Sundays, family day. The big family, as Ethan called it, gathered for lunch. I became part of the rotation too. Some days it was just the two kids, Ethan and my daughter Mia, playing tag in the yard, their laughter echoing through the house like tiny bells. Some days it was the four of us, the kids on the floor with crayons, the adults talking gently around the table. The first time Ethan came to my house, he ran straight into my kitchen and asked, Do you have the cereal I like? The one with the tigers. He remembered me. The way I looked at that box in the grocery store. The way our eyes met. Yes, I said, my voice catching. I have it. I had bought 3 boxes, just in case. He grinned and hugged my leg before running to find Mia. I stood there, overwhelmed by the simple miracle of it. A child who should have been a stranger felt like he had always belonged. Lena changed too. Slowly. Steadily. She started therapy, not because anyone asked her to, but because she wanted to understand the fear that once swallowed her whole. She got a steadier job, fixed up her apartment, found a sense of grounding she'd never had before. The woman who once believed she didn't deserve to be a mother was learning to believe she was enough. It still scares me, she confessed one afternoon as we watched Ethan build a tower out of wooden blocks. Motherhood scares everyone, I said. Even the ones who think they're ready. She smiled, a soft, trembling thing. I wasted so much time, she whispered. No, I said gently. You walked a harder road than most. But look where you ended up. She reached for my hand, a rare gesture between us. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me. I squeezed her fingers. You're my sister, I whispered. That's never going to change. The moment I knew Ethan had fully accepted Lena came without fanfare, without a dramatic crescendo. It happened on an ordinary Wednesday. We were all at the park, kids laughing, grown-ups seated on a blanket in the grass. Ethan had been running in circles when he tripped, fell, and scraped his palm. He looked up, eyes shimmering with the first warning of tears. And then he ran. But not to Marlene. He ran straight to Lena. "Mommy," he cried. The word cut through the air, soft, sudden, startling. Lena froze. I did too. Marlene's eyes softened, no jealousy, no fear, just pride. Ethan threw his tiny arms around Lena's waist, clinging to her as she knelt down in tears. She held him close, rocking gently. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've always got you." I felt my own eyes sting. Because that was the moment he really knew, that she belonged to him. Not instead of Marlene, but alongside her. 2 women. 1 child. 1 complicated, beautiful family. Weeks later, Ethan sat on my lap as I helped him tie his shoes. He stared at my face for a long moment, a quiet, searching gaze. "Auntie," he asked softly. "Yes, sweetheart." "Why do you look like Mommy?" I froze. He didn't say first Mommy. He said Mommy, the way kids name people by the place they hold in their hearts. I swallowed the ache in my throat. "Because we're sisters," I said gently. "We come from the same family." He nodded like that answered everything, simple, complete. "And I'm part of your family now too?" "Yes." In every way that mattered. "Always," I whispered, kissing the top of his head. "You were always meant to be part of us." He smiled, satisfied, and went back to tugging on his shoelaces with the fierce determination only a 4-year-old can have. In that moment, I understood something. Even when we don't see the whole picture, even when we don't understand the path someone takes, love has a way of circling back. Finding its place. Finding its people. Coming home. By the time Ethan turned 5, he had 2 birthday cakes, one at Marlene's house, one at ours. And he blew out candles in both places, never confused, never torn, just loved. Marlene became Mommy Mar and Lena became Mommy Lena. Some families break under secrets. Others bend under lies. But some, the rare ones, learn how to grow around the truth like vines finding sunlight. We became that kind of family. Messy. Complicated. Imperfect. But rooted in something real. Something earned. Something honest. And one day, months after their trembling conversation on the couch, Ethan drew a picture at preschool. It showed 3 figures. A small boy, a woman in a nurse's uniform, and another woman with curly auburn hair. Underneath, in crooked letters, he wrote, "My 2 mommies." When Lena saw it, she cried so hard she had to step outside. Marlene followed her, held her, and whispered, "You're doing it. You're really doing it." One evening, as the sun dipped low and cast a warm glow across the living room, Ethan crawled into my lap with a picture book. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "it's lucky I got 2 mommies." "Oh." I smiled. "Why is that?" He shrugged. "Because some kids don't even get one. And I got 2. That means I'm extra loved." I hugged him, gently, carefully, and felt something inside me finally settle. Not just peace. Not just closure. But gratitude. For second chances. For the courage to tell the truth. For the messy, beautiful way families can rebuild. And for a little boy with auburn curls who taught us all how to love braver than before.